During DragonCon, a crafty little hint was dropped. What was this hint? Adventure mode. All we have is a name, and we are apparently going to learn more about it at BlizzCon. So the usual goes. This is pre-launch speculation, and while it could be amazing, it could also be terrible. Anyway, here are my thoughts. So, point number 1. The Diablo 3 thing. It is impossible to avoid a Diablo 3 connection. Adventure mode is already a feature in the highly successful Reaper of Souls expansion. It is one of the features that actually began to turn the game's fortunes from its rather diabolical launch to its current and, if I must say, very fun state. The way it works is pretty simple. It gives you 5 objectives on your world map. These take place in the locations of Diablo 3's campaign. Sometimes you have to kill a boss from the game, other times they will maybe spawn a small challenge or give you a task that is specifically put there for the adventure objective. Once you complete 5 objectives, you head back to town and you get a chest containing loot and some blood shards, which is one of the game's currencies, Apexis crystals. So we've established that it's great in Diablo 3, but what about World of Warcraft? Is it actually going to be similar to that? Well, we do have some information to go off. First of all, there have been murmurings about old world content. During DragonCon, they said that they weren't sure about artifact weapons involving old world content, but that they do like the idea. With Time Walking, it's also clear that they are not against using basically now defunct content at max level. The devs also hinted at a large unannounced feature during their Gamescom reveal. Could that be adventure mode? Well, it's hard to say for sure, but for the rest of the video, I'm going to go down a few different routes with every point, and we'll talk about how it could actually be a thing in the game, how it might work, and just in general, talk about the topic. Part 2, the WoW version of the Diablo thing. Well, it's definitely clear that they could go a few different ways with the World of Warcraft implementation of this. First of all, it could be a straight port of Diablo 3's design. In this version, you would probably go to a mission table of sorts and grab your bounty quests for the day. Then you would head off into the world, and you'd do them. What would that entail? Well, it could be a mix of things. First of all, they could spawn a bunch of enemies in an area and have you kill them. Simple enough. Hopefully they would throw in an elite mob or two with some abilities to actually make it interesting. They could also spawn an Apexis mission in a zone, which I think would cause great happiness amongst players because Apexis missions truly are the thing that saved Warlords of Draenor from its absolutely terrible raid content, which, let's be honest, nobody actually liked. Ugh. So yeah, they could do an Apexis mission, or, you know, you could just quit. They could also spawn some events, which are rather similar to what they did with patch 5.3. So what's that? Miniature world bosses, caravans to escort, loot to plunder, locations to defend against attackers, various little things like that. Once you would complete a set of these objectives, which of course would be strewn around the world, you would probably get something which amounts to a strongbox. What would be in it? Well, I imagine it would be something similar to, say, a Garrison Invasion strongbox, where you would have a chance of getting a few rare cosmetic items, but you would almost definitely get some sort of relevant currency. Gear drops are something that I'm very, very wary of designing into a system like this, because contributing to the game's overly rapid gearing problem is a really big concern of mine. So perhaps just some currency, a chance of some cool rare stuff, and you'd also get a burst of experience for your artifact weapon. So that's pretty much point 2 covered, the idea of a straight port from Diablo 3 to World of Warcraft. Next, point 3, recycling. They could use this adventure mode to reuse quest content that they have already made. They can now scale up your character with ease in an almost bug-free manner, and they can pretty much do the same thing to the content that you are actually doing. Now this version of the adventure mode would pretty much scale up a questline, maybe a more lore significant one, to a relevant difficulty to our characters. A part of me wouldn't mind this, but it is content that most people have already done, and I cannot see it generating that much excitement past whatever rewards Blizzard would just bolt onto the system. One thing that would interest me though is the idea of scaling up old dungeons to a challenging solo difficulty and giving you one of those per day, but that would compete with Time Walking, and it does sound very contrived. So it's just a rough idea for something that I think would be fun, but the hard bit is where the hell do you place that into the game? Keeping on the point of recycling, adventure mode could be as simple as just giving a framework that's doing existing tasks that they have already made, such as dungeons, reps, and the like, and just sort of bolting a reward onto that. Kind of like having a progression of the adventure guide that they already have in the game. I mean, come on, adventure guide, adventure mode. It's not a crazy idea to say that they'll just take the adventure guide a little bit further. I think that would be pretty bad if this was this major big feature that they're super excited about that they haven't actually announced yet. But anyway, let's move away from point 3. It's nasty and it doesn't involve new content. Point 4, the random way of doing things. They could make use, now hear me out here, of the game's scenario tech, and then use some randomization and pre-existing locations and mechanics to theoretically generate content. There is great potential in this, but generated content normally doesn't feel as good as handcrafted content because the flow isn't as perfectly tweaked and tuned. What I wouldn't mind is then perhaps generating boss encounters in this manner. They would build up a pool of possible abilities and give you a slice of those for an encounter that would be spawned in a version of the adventure system which I think would be similar to a straight port, like what I covered in the second point of this video. The larger the pool of abilities, the better. Yeah, it's basically what they do in Diablo 3, but I think it's a brilliant way of changing up the combat. In World of Warcraft, we've got things like interrupts and dispels, and a lot of mechanics that are intrinsic to our classes, which I think could really allow them to randomly generate some bloody cool fights that would almost act as basic raid skill training, which would be a very, very good thing. On to point number 5, the repetition problem. In Diablo 3, you can do adventures 24/7. There is no limit and there is no cap. Once you complete a set of 5 objectives, it spawns a new and different set, and there's also like sets in different areas. That's fine for Diablo, but in Warcraft it would present a myriad of problems. If whatever currency they had from this would involve player power, then you risk having the problem of people grinding them out 24/7, causing a large gap in power that Blizzard might not want and perhaps increasing the risk of players burning out on content. What you could do is have the first set of adventure mode things every day give you the currency, and then anything after that, well fine, you can grind it out for cosmetic items, but the gear curve would be more manageable that way. You could also only give players one per day, like one set of objectives or quests, and then have a sort of different set every day in a different continent. That could work pretty well too. It's a really hard balance to strike though between allowing people to do as much content as they want when they want, and then sort of safeguarding against burnout and making sure the progression curves are decently balanced. It's a tough thing for Blizzard to really grapple with, and we'll just have to wait to BlizzCon to see where this will actually fit. So there are my thoughts so far on what this system might be, some of the issues that Blizzard would have to face, and just some general discussion around the topic. Overall, if the adventure guide is going to send us back to old content, then I would like it to tweak and change that content to be something different. And I suppose I say old content, but what I really mean is old locations, and you can make new content in old locations. If we were to go back to an old zone, I basically would just rather be doing something new inside that zone. That's far more interesting to me than, oh look, we just scaled up some quests, have at it. If it's a pure reward-based reuse of old content that they've already made, then this won't be that interesting to me. But if they can take the plus points of what Diablo 3 did, and then do some really intelligent things in terms of the reward structure, and also the content itself to make it feel different every day, then I think this could actually be a really big plus for the game. But of course, that's just a theory, a game theory, which probably means piss all in the end. Hopefully, they've got something great to announce at BlizzCon. Thanks for watching, hit me up on Twitter if you want to chat about this more, and I will see you next time.